Hello there ladies and gentlemen, I'm TX141, but you may call me Paul. Welcome you all to a brand new Ace in a Day gameplay for the arcade mode of War Thunder. In today's episode we shall be essentially re-reviewing the TA-152 H-1, a German high altitude fighter coming to tier 4 and a battle rating of 6.3. Now as I say, I have already reviewed this plane and you may see that review using the link in the top right corner of your screen as displayed now. But the need for the re-review has come from your input, recommending that I should take another look at this plane since its flight model was updated approximately a month or two ago. Now the flight model update applied to both arcade and realistic battles, but we shall be focusing on arcade of course. And without further ado then, let us go into our gameplay for today. For today's gameplay then, we're on the air domination map Kursk using the same setup as in our original review video, excluding two minor changes. The first is that our fuel load has been dropped from 45 minutes to 30, as this is the new minimum fuel load that the plane can take on. Our second, perhaps more noticeable change, is that our gun convergence is now set at 250 metres, not 500 metres. This is not a change I would recommend, and to provide some context behind this, since providing the original review, this is the third time that I have flown the plane, with all of my flyouts since the review occurring last weekend, and only really occurring due to the fact that you guys and girls piqued my interest into re-reviewing the plane since its flight model update. It is not that I've become frustrated with the TA-152 H-1 over time, but I've respected it and flown it enough to decide to retire it to the hangar and only fly it on the rare occasion, and this being one of them. This is the third out of the 4 games I played for the plane over the last weekend, and I decided to experiment with the gun convergence setup, using a 250 metre gun convergence for my final 2 games, and concluding that the 500 metre gun convergence, which I used for the first 2 games, was the better. Additionally, what should be noted in this game is that this is not only a re-review, but also a demonstration of a circumstance that you may have had when playing War Thunder, where you have not flown the plane for a certain amount of time, either due to frustration with the aircraft or because you have flown it too much in your own personal opinion and you want to vary things. As a result, you may find from time to time when you do this, that when you do return to the plane, you are not as confident in how the plane handles or feels. And you're going to see this from my perspective here today, as having not flown the TA-152 H-1 technically in at least a month, if not 2 or 3, I did not really know how to gauge the aircraft from my initial preconceptions, and that is why I avoided watching the review video, and at the same time, because of the new flight model, I was not sure what to expect. And in the first half of this game in particular, you're going to see me be very slow and very deliberate about things. I am going to be incredibly conservative and not really engage targets unless I'm 100% sure I can kill them, or 99.9% sure. And as the game develops into the latter half, you will see the pace pick up a little bit and my confidence go through the roof, or at least in my personal opinion once again. But moving away from what I think, we should move on to what we can see. And we see straight away that the emphasis of higher altitudes, i.e. altitudes in excess of 5,000 metres typically, for the TA-152 H-1 to perform well, is still here even with the new flight model. But one thing to note is that the nose heaviness of the plane has been reduced in the new flight model by comparison with that of the old. What do we mean by this exactly? Well, in the original flight model, the nose heavy nature of the plane was such that when performing manoeuvres that relied on the elevator at speeds below 350 km an hour, the plane was incredibly sluggish to do so, and even when you shifted the speed of this plane up to 450 km an hour, if not more, where this plane is recommended to be flown at, the nose or the elevator control in particular was a little bit unresponsive and slow to respond. Even in the midst of a boom and zoom dive when you were travelling at 700 km an hour, it was always the elevator control which was a little bit behind. But this has been reduced to an extent. At lower speeds, i.e. below 350 km an hour, the nose or the elevator control we should say is still slow, but not as slow, and it becomes significantly more responsive with increasing speed. And by a speed of 500 km an hour, the sluggishness seems to erode completely. And this means that you can enact very dangerous boom and zoom passes, as we begin by picking our Focke-Wulf 190 A5U2 for kill number 1. We now carry through our boom and zoom pass, and we can see that the linear energy retention characteristics of the TA-152 H-1 are still there, if they have not been enhanced a slight bit. I just feel that we can pick up a little bit more altitude when we come out of boom and zoom passes now, thanks to the fact this plane seems to hold its speed even more so. And this means that we can loop around and level out into a secondary climb at technically an altitude of 4,000 metres and a speed of 400 km an hour before dropping it and levelling out once again at approximately 300 if not 250 km an hour, doing so here at the 300 km an hour case. As we level out then, we gradually pick up a little bit more altitude and speed, and we should say that the straight line acceleration of this plane is the same as before. It is gradual but significant, and you will find yourself when you are using the plane in a dead level state picking up your speed above 500 km an hour rather rapidly, even without the usage of war emergency power. But this only occurs with increase in altitude, and ideally you want to be above 4,500 metres altitude for the engine to perform at its best. And at altitudes of 7,000 metres you will find that the engine comes into a world of its own, and once again that brilliant high altitude sustainability and indeed overall consistency of the plane by comparison to a number of your battle rating and tier contemporaries is still there. You are going to be one of the best, if not the best performer at altitudes in excess of 8,000 metres for example, on the very fringes of the altitudes that you would typically find a dogfight in an arcade battle. We come around for a second boom and zoom pass, crippling the PE2 in terms of their right aileron. Unfortunately it's not enough, but we can see here, thanks to our linear energy retention once again, we can run away from a Focke-Wulf Yak 15, a tier 5 jet, a Messerschmitt 19 ML3 and a number of other enemy fighters trying to climb up out of their spawn to try and hit us in pursuit. And this gradually enables me to build up my confidence, and you will see now that I make the transition into a more aggressive state after one or two more situations where I'm trying to evaluate exactly how the plane can react. And coming up right now is a J2M trying to lure us down to lower altitudes, as we are the only fighter on either team to be patrolling at an altitude in excess of 4,000 metres. And in situations like this in arcades air domination battles, I should say two fighters, a Focke-Wulf 90 has just been spotted on our team towards the southern side of the map. But in these situations in arcade air domination battles, you do not want to relinquish the higher altitudes unless you absolutely need to do so. And we see our J2M here, making a turn underneath us and trying to bring us down. But we decide to restrain ourselves after making a feint in order to try and drop down on top of them, but we can see they were trying to lure us into pursuing their dive, which whilst we would have been able to outrun them in the long term, would have put us in a very dangerous position. As we take a look at the statistics screens very quickly, we can see that things are rather even in terms of the fighter composition of both teams, so nothing to report back there. We go for a reload then, and as we continue to fly along, we note that really the changes to the flight model are not too significant, and if anything the strengths of the plane have been boosted to some extent and the weaknesses are still apparent if not slightly mitigated. This means, as a result, this plane still performs in the role it's designed for, which is the high altitude fighter with brilliant energy fighter characteristics. As we come down from up high here, we decide to enact another high speed boom and zoom pass. This time we're going to pick on a Spitfire F, most likely the Griffin type, although we're not sure which type until we get in close. As we come down on what is a Mark 22, we cut them apart for our second kill, and we decide to follow through here, noticing that our roll rate is the same, if not slightly more towards that of say a Focke-Wulf 90 D9 or D12 with the new flight model. We carry our energy through and pursue onto the back of a P51 D5, catching them in the midst of their turn for our third kill. As we follow through once more, we notice a Messerschmitt 19G just off to our right, but as we go to get the shot on the G10, unfortunately one of our friendly fighters cuts them apart. Here we miss because we make a mistake in evaluating that the elevator control is stronger than we thought it would be, and as a result that cost us what could have been our fourth kill. As we saw, all of our shots went off at first until we tried to realign, but then it was too late as one of our friendlies intercepted the G10 for the kill. So again, that is a mistake and also a evaluation of the elevator control surface, which is technically the weakest of the three. The rudder is reasonably powerful, the elevator is the slowest as we have already evaluated, and the roll rate or the aileron controls seem to be the most potent. And coming back to our point in terms of the roll rate of this aircraft, it has been boosted somewhat towards that of the Focke-Wulf 90 D9 if not the D12. This plane rolls slightly faster than it used to, and this means that in those high speed boom and zoom passes you can latch onto targets even at speeds in excess of 700 km an hour, at which point originally the roll rate began to lock up, not too significantly but it was a noticeable effect. That lockup has now been reduced in terms of its overall scaling factor, which means that that lockup does occur, but you're not going to notice it as much until you hit a speed of approximately 850 km an hour. And this is a brilliant position to be in when you are trying to track a target at 800 km an hour speed, as they will not be able to escape your grasp if you are a reasonably accurate pilot. But As we now move on, we can see that our energy retention characteristics, even after that rather exaggerated set of manoeuvres in that boom and zoom pass, means we're already back up to 3,500 metres altitude and pushing up towards 4,000 if not more. And this means that we can now engage the enemy B-25, which has set alight our friendly P-51 Mustang and killed them. We need to enact revenge on this lethal bomber, which we've already found out from reviewing it, and to do so we're going to come in for a beam shot, as they seem to be engrossed on a target to our left, i.e. one of our friendly planes. But we will get there first and cut the B-25 down, but unfortunately we seem to get an assist, and it turns out that there was a friendly Corsair climb up underneath the B-25. Therefore we look off to our right and we notice a Yakovlev Yak-9 trying to climb for altitude, or no, trying to hide their intentions we should say, and we notice a P-39N Aerocobra also climbing up underneath us. We decide to swing around here using our powerful rudder control in order to make sure we can get the shot on target, and we cut them apart for kill number 4. It is at this point that we now carry our energy through once again in order to enact revenge on the Yak-9 who is trying to shoot down the G5N. And we say revenge because they are most likely taking a little bit of damage, and we want to make up for that by shredding their plane completely for our ace in a day. We can see here how we can quickly latch onto targets in the distance with our speed being conserved, especially in excess of 500 km an hour and dropping below that as we kill the target, but this is nothing new to the TA-152 H-1's nature. And as we level out here, we notice that the skies are clear of enemy threats once again, with our friendly Lancaster and our friendly G5N both secure up high and able to act as gunships if need be, as there are no targets to bomb in air domination. We look down and see an LA-7 has spawned in, but not posing a threat, and then we latch onto the fact that Dornier 217 has spawned in, and they might try to act as a heavy fighter against both us and our friendly bombers. Going for a reload then, we decide to pursue, but only dive down the Dornier 217 at the last moment. We do not want to give away our true intentions. We're trying to pretend that we're just patrolling up high, I should say, and not trying to attack them straight away. We now cut around for a split S, and we notice that the Dornier 217 was not anticipating this, and we can swing down hard on them. Opening fire at long distance, aim well in front of the lead reticule thanks to the lower muzzle velocity of the 30mm cannon, we cut them apart for kill number 6, and go for a head-on pass with an LA-7B20 here, and take us a couple of scratches to our left wing. It was not something that we anticipated, but at the same time it has proven that the durability of the TA-152 has stood strong. It is not the best of the durabilities available at the battle rate and tier combination, but it is enough to get by, and a couple of 20mm cannon rounds scraping the wing will not be enough to rip this plane apart, although we can see that our left piece of our landing gear has disappeared completely. Here we go head to head with B7A2, putting a couple of scratching 20mm cannon shells in, but it's not enough. So we snap roll past them and carry our momentum through, noticing another Dornier 217 has spawned in, and also a Messerschmitt 109 is climbing up towards the side of the map, is at the same altitude as us. The Dornier now goes for a dive, it's a K variant, and we pursue, once again showing how we can quickly catch up with those who try to run away from us in the vertical, and we cut them apart for kill number 7. We then latch onto an M1K also trying to climb up, and they react too late, not going into a dive or trying to cut underneath us, and we pick up our 8th kill as we set them on fire, or at least we intend to. With kill number 8 in the bag, we notice the Messerschmitt 109 above us, and unfortunately we cannot go after them because the B7A2 seems to be able to keep up with us. Of course they have taken a shorter path by comparison with our own path, as we were able to intercept the M1K2, but at the same time compromise our escape plan from the B7A2, so this is understandable. But we can gradually see as our two planes decide to carry on in straight paths, we begin to pull the distance on the B7A2, who has to put their nose down in order to be able to keep up. Albeit with a gradual angle, the B7A2 in the end is tempted by our friendly TU2, and this means that we can now push back up towards higher altitudes. And here we take the approach of providing ourselves with a little bit more space in order to bide our time. The skies are cloudless and empty of threats by that Messerschmitt 109, and we do not want to rush things when we have been performing so well and so conservatively so far. As a result, we're going to head out southbound for a little bit and then come around in a position where we're at least in an equal energy state to our adversary, i.e. the Messerschmitt 109, and we can compete once again for the higher altitude regions. We come around then, with our speed in a low region here, below 300 km an hour, but our lower nose heaviness means that we can now bring ourselves around rather quickly and go into a gradual dive against an LA-7, the LA-7B20 from earlier we believe. We achieve a critical hit in the head-on, spraying towards them and knocking out their elevator, and now we carry forward and go for the Messerschmitt 109, we want another head-on pass because we have the firepower to dispatch them. Then we notice an enemy Spitfire is also pushed towards higher altitudes, and the Messerschmitt 19 has a significant altitude advantage on us. The odds here are going to be a 2 versus 1, or at least a 1 versus 1 head-on pass against that Messerschmitt 19, which is not in our favour because gravity will be against us. Instead we decide to turn around and head southwards again. We notice the LA-7B-20 is gradually meandering towards the lower altitudes, if not into the ground thanks to their loss of their elevator control, and is now being pursued by a friendly Focke-Wulf 190. This means we can gradually make our way away, and essentially hide the fact that we are trying to push for altitude by simply meandering off to the back of the battlefield and hoping that the enemy Spitfire, much like the Messerschmitt 19 here, are both tempted to fly to lower altitudes, A to prevent the cap, and B because there are more tempting targets down low. Remembering that the cap zone in an air domination game lies in the altitude region of 500 to 5,000 metres. Picking up an assist on that LA-7B-20 in the end, we now make our way back over, having reached an altitude of 6,000 metres plus, and we can see here how our acceleration and indeed our plane's performance is exactly the same as you would find at 4,500 metres, echoing the consistency which we talked about earlier, but we already found this consistency when we did our original review, so this is nothing new to report. Indeed, as we keep on a level path then and keep an eye on the scoreboard, we notice that the ranks on both teams are thinning out, most likely in favour of our team from the looks of things, and this means that we can now gradually try to pick off the enemy fighters that will try to escape from the masses of our friendly fighters by going to higher altitudes or flying off in solo sections, including this Messerschmitt 19 who is trying to make a solo effort on our G5N. But as we can see here, we are coming up very quickly behind them and they are completely unaware of our presence. We're going to get in close to this one and make every round count. The G6 is absolutely cut to pieces for our 9th kill, and we carry our momentum through on a Lancaster who cannot dive out the way due to their very heavy nature. This means we take a scratch to our right hand wing, only towards the inner side of it, most likely towards where the fuel tank would be located, we pick up our double ace. Here we cut over the top, doing a sort of diagonal Immelman, to say the least, and we start to rejoice in the fact that we have picked up a double ace despite our rather adverse circumstances in not really knowing the capabilities of the plane until about halfway through the game. And now we see a lone KI-84 heading off towards the edge of the map. With our team capturing the zone, it is time for us to make a final effort and try and pick up that 11th and final kill. And here we are once again going to see just how powerful the energy retention characteristics of the TA-152H-1 are, and how the slight upgrade to them since the previous flight model means that we can actually use this plane to outstall a plane which has a much lower stall speed, such as the KI-84. For reference, the stall speed we found at the TA-152H-1 lies in the region of approximately 160 km an hour. It is one of the higher ones for the fighters of its battle rating and tier, and one of the more dangerous ones, with the stalling effects already really coming into force at about 200 km an hour, which is a very dangerous position to be in. For the purposes of attacking the KI-84, we are going to use our initial dive to come up underneath them, as we do not want them to use a split S to get out of the way due to their rather high manoeuvrability. As we chase after them then, they are completely aware of us, and we try to attack them in their initial split S. Unfortunately we cannot latch on, and our blackout means that we miss our initial shots. It's at this point that we're going to cross paths with the KI-84 as we force the dogfight into the vertical and use our superior energy state here in order to force them to follow us in a spiral climb. But thanks to a number of exaggerated manoeuvres, the KI-84 Co will not be able to follow us. It's a very risky tactic, but one which surprised me at this point in the game, and in fact this echoes how powerful the TA-152's energy retention and indeed vertical characteristics has become, as we force the KI-84 co-pilot to bow out and we pick up what would have been our 11th kill. And with that being said, it is now time for us to take a look at the post-game stats. With our 10 kills and 3 assists, we're able to pick up 53,018 Silver Lions and 4,919 research points. This now brings us on to the conclusion of our re-review of the TA-152H-1. While I personally feel that the new flight model does not bring anything new to the table, but instead sees a slight strengthening of two of the core strengths of the aircraft and a slight alleviation of one of the main weaknesses. Starting with the main weakness, it is in terms of the nose-heavy nature of the plane at speeds below 350 km an hour. This has been reduced on a small part, and this means that the plane is more controllable in a low-speed situation, but not to the point where it can be used as a turn fighter or a plane based around low to medium speed manoeuvrability. Moving on to the boosted strengths then, the first one is the roll rate, which is now akin to that of a Focke-Wulf 190 D9 or D12 and only begins to lock up at speeds in excess of 800 km an hour. The second core strength would have to be the straight line energy retention of the plane, which has been boosted slightly so that this plane can pull even more distance both in the horizontal and vertical from its opponents once it has come out of a boom and zoom pass. And by bringing this new flight model together and boosting our confidence in it over the course of this air domination game, we're able to come second by comparison to the rest of our team. It is not a case with the TA-152 H-1 that this is an old dog being taught new tricks with a new flight model. Oh no. But a solidification of this plane as a high to extreme altitude energy fighter which prides itself on very powerful and controllable boom and zoom passes. And so I've been TX141, and if you've enjoyed this video, why not leave a like, comment or subscribe for future War Thunder videos on my channel. Yet until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care and good luck in the skies!